So gather around, little children, and I will tell you the time and the crux and the details of how the family of the man, the rabbit, and the dog became disalooted. They were together. They were thick as thieves. They loved each other. The dog, who had almost killed the rabbit and was barely saved by the man, the dog and the rabbit became friends. And when the rabbit became a commander or had the man evolved too far for the dog, he commanded the dog. The dog accepted his place in the man. He even accepted his place, so to speak, because the rabbit became the dominant. The rabbit became very critical. He became very critical, but the dissolution of their triumphant, the three-way relationship of three healthy male vertebrae or mammals, how it came to an end, it was a very sad situation, but the night it came to an end will always be remembered in the town and in the neighborhood because there was a lot of yelling and screaming. And finally, some people discovered that the rabbit could talk, but they didn't even believe it because they didn't see the rabbit talk. If they had known that the rabbit was yelling and screaming, perhaps they would have, it would have gone differently for the rabbit and the man and the dog, because they always tried to reach out and alert the world that the rabbit could talk. The man knew it was a miracle. It was something that had never been seen before on the earth. He questioned everything when you heard the rabbit talk. The man who had been a veterinary, a self-educated veterinarian, he knew it was a miracle that the rabbit had been empowered, had been endowed. The rabbit had been endowed with the power of speech. And though this rabbit was not particularly intelligent, so at first he didn't even talk. For many years he didn't even say anything. He began to talk because he knew everybody. Once he heard the rabbit, the man, and even the dog, with only his dog intelligence, the rabbit developed his intelligence because he could learn. He could attend lectures, and because this is the only time I'm going to say this, as a psychologist, sometimes they refer to me as the exasperated psychologist, but as a psychologist, we always concentrate on the fact the rabbit could talk, but the rabbit could hear. The rabbit could understand the verbalization of other people. The rabbit could understand, and in this case, he could understand English. He never learned to know other languages. He knew the rabbit language and the human language, but it was English, the English version of human language. But the rabbit, not only could he speak, and so he could ask questions and everything, he could internalize, he could hear. This was the thing that no one counted. I'm not going to say it again because it's for another set of stories, another volume. I'm going to do another volume later because it's going to be more technical, more for scientists like myself. It's going to be more for the scientific community, but this is for the general public. So we're talking about the speech, but remember, the rabbit could hear. Not only could the rabbit hear and internalize and understand, he could talk, but this was the thing that they underestimated. The rabbit could hear. So he became not necessarily more intelligent, but he became more educated. But the rabbit and the man, they were trying to discover what they could do to become famous and capitalize on their celebrity and monetize their celebrity. The man and the rabbit, and even the dog, to a lesser extent, the dog understood that you could become a Kardashian. And if the dog ever had the ability to speak, the dog would have said, I wanted to become a Kardashian. The dog would have said, I wanted to become a Kardashian because these people are making so much money off of their presence. They're filming them. They're kind of boring. They're pretty people, but, they're getting older, so their looks are fading, and it's a lot of cosmetics, and it's a lot of, everybody could take a cell phone picture and doctor it. The dog, if he could speak, they would say, the dog would say, you could doctor a photo. You could make your butt look trimmer or get rid of your stretch marks or whatever you want to do. You could do something. And you could market yourself and you could be more famous. You could become a celebrity. The dog even, if the dog could have spoke, the dog would have said, hey, why couldn't we become celebrities and monetize our celebrity? But they never did, and because the dog, he couldn't speak, and the dog was not that intelligent, but the dog, in the inklings of his mind, the deep recesses of his mind, he knew. He wished he could become a Kardashian, and if the dog could have verbalized anything, he would have said, I wish I could have become a freaking Kardashian over here. Then I could have made a lot of money, and I could have had every day, I could have finished with a T-bone. I could have had a T-bone and some gravy. I could have run and chased deer, and I could have chased turkeys. I could have done whatever I wanted to do. The dog probably would have bought the golf course. If he became a Kardashian, the dog probably would have bought a golf course and run on the golf course every day because the dog loved. When the man took him out on the golf course, he loved running on the golf course. And if he only could have become a Kardashian, he probably would have built or, he would have gone and bought Larry Bird's golf course. He would have said, Larry Bird, up here at French Lick, I want this golf course. I want to run. I want to roll. I want to run up and down the, But in Kentucky, he got to run on a really nice golf course, and he learned. But it never happened, and they never became Kardashian celebrities, or they never got fame, and they never monetized pretty much nothing. They never monetized nothing but pornographic comic books and illegal fireworks from Uruguay. But if the dog could have been, if the dog could have verbalized, I think he probably would have said, I wish I could have been a Kardashian. But he never did. He never became a Kardashian or never did verbalize anything. But the rabbit was really upset because he knew that they weren't monetizing or they weren't becoming famous. But the problem was that neither the man nor the dog, neither the man nor the rabbit, neither had particular very good intelligence. The rabbit, he was only as smart as a moderately intelligent rabbit who became, because of his verbalization skills and his ability to hear English, he became well educated. But it did not really increase his intelligence. It increased his abilities. He could have been more successful, but he didn't. He never became more intelligent because you don't become more intelligent. And the man, he probably would have been very intelligent because he came from a long line of very intelligent veterinarian people and very successful veterinarians, and who had many veterinary places. And who had a wonderful estate, handcrafted by Italian masons and Italian workers that they imported. The man's legacy that he inherited would have been very, very substantial, but the man had suffered, obviously, as we know, the man had suffered a oxygen deprivation incident in his youth, and this, had curtailed his intelligence very dramatically. But on the night in question, on the night that the rabbit and the man got in a terrible fight, the dog yipped. The dog yelped like, please stop. The dog was yelping like he could try to speak. He had heard the rabbit talk, and he knew rabbits don't talk because he'd killed a few rabbits, and he'd hunted quite a few rabbits, and he'd shook a few rabbits to their death, and this rabbit was shaken but didn't die. So he knew this rabbit was special, and the rabbit, as he developed his skills of verbalization and internalization of the English language, he became to command the dog. He would tell the dog, go sit in the corner, you fool. I'm fed up with you. You cannot do anything. You stink. Maybe you should go take a bath. But the rabbit, we would command the dog. He'd say, I'm fed up with you. I can't understand why you drool. You drool on the ground? And what's your problem? And you're always eating all my, you're always trying to I get a couple things over here that I would eat, that I would enjoy, and you sniff them, and you rub your snotty nose all over them, and no one wants to eat a snotty nose carrot stick after a dog wiped the dog sniffed it. The dog won't eat it because he's not a vegetarian. He only wants to eat the, proteins and things. But anyways, the rabbit, he liked the dog. And the rabbit were very close and very good friends. They came to have a very strong bond. But the rabbit was the ace side. The rabbit was the ace side. And he was the commander. And he led the dog. But this was a good thing because the dog had no intelligence other than a run-of-the-mill dog intelligence, which is not that good. On the grand scheme of things, it's not a very high intelligence, run-of-the-mill dog. It's not even a educated or verbalized, speaking rabbit, nothing. And the dumb man, even the dumb man was very vastly superior to a, run-of-the-mill dog. But on the night in question, somehow no one knew how it started. It might have been from the VMAs. The VMAs, it's a kind of a thing where they do videos. I don't even know if it could have been the MTV Awards. No, the MTV Awards were over by then. But maybe it was like the Country Music Awards or some kind of a thing, or maybe an Emmys. But there was a woman who had dressed in a skin-tight clad of plastic, and she looked like she was naked in her clothes. And so her clothes didn't really conceal anything. And there was another woman who was more curvy, and she wore all black leather. So a black leather woman was juxtaposed to a younger, skinnier, naked. The clothes were see-through, so she was naked. And the rabbit and the man got in a terrible fight over this. And the rabbit's contention, even though he was a little plump, because he was eating a lot of Fruit Loops and he wasn't getting so much carrots or so much celery or so much greens or lettuce, because the man, he didn't really shop that well. And at the beginning, he shopped pretty good and he knew the rabbit, but he got lazy. The man got a little lazy, so the rabbit wasn't getting so much good food. He wasn't getting so many greens or so much fresh vegetables. At some points in Kentucky, the man would go and they had a vegetable tray, and it was already prepared and cleaned vegetables, but it was like $10, and the man was like, I can't buy a $10 vegetable tray, twice a week. I could do it once a week. So the rabbit would get some broccoli, some cauliflower, but the man ate some of the broccoli and cauliflower and the cucumbers and the tomatoes in the vegetable tray. It was like for a party, you buy a vegetable tray, a little party, a bigger one. The bigger one was $20, the smaller one was $10. It was pre-cleaned and pre-cut up, and all the vegetables. You had the carrots, you had the tomatoes, you had the cucumbers, and the broccoli and the cauliflower. So the rabbit, he had access to these things, but the man and the rabbit were a little bit, they were in competition to get some vegetables, and the man wanted to get some vegetables too. The man wanted some vegetables, but the rabbit, he should have gotten more vegetables. But when the tray ran out, then they would eat, or if they didn't eat it fast enough, sometimes they didn't even eat it fast enough, and some of it spoiled. And then the rabbit would be eating bananas. The man would buy, it was so cheap. The man didn't make that much money, so it was cheap, and he had to pay a lot of taxes. The problem with the man, he always had to pay a lot of taxes. A whole lot of taxes. So he lived pretty frugally, and he didn't have that much. He did not have that much disposable income. The man did not have that much disposable income. So they had vegetable tray once a week, a $10 vegetable tray, and then the rabbit in the summer and the spring and in the warmer seasons, he could eat some natural greens. But the rabbit, he was getting fat because he was eating Fruit Loops and bananas and some corn chips. And so anyways, but the rabbit was plump, but they got in a terrible fight during the VMAs over a woman who was clad in all leather, and including her face was concealed with the leather, and a woman who was younger and a little skinnier, and she was dressed in see-through clothes, and she appeared naked. And the man and the rabbit got in a horrifying fight because the rabbit said that, from what I can tell from reading the Bible, and this was crazy because the man didn't read the Bible. The rabbit, he read the Bible. And the rabbit learned how to operate a cell phone. The rabbit would say, look, we have to get a cell phone for me because I have to have some, I have to operate the cell phone because you have no computer, there's no laptop, there's nothing. There's not a laptop, there's not an iPad, there's nothing, not a computer. And my only access to the outside world is the YouTube on the television, which all I see is the car jumps and the MMA fighters on the YouTube with pornography, and it's human pornography. Who wants to watch human pornography? If they made a rabbit pornography, perhaps I would watch. If I had some rabbit pornography, yeah, maybe I could watch a little pornography, but I'm not looking at human pornography. And on the TV, this is all you get. But if you operate the cell phone, you could access some things. You become educated, but the rabbit eventually, when he left the man, after this was the big fight when the rabbit left. This was the night the rabbit left, and a big terrible fight. The rabbit went on to develop rabbit pointers. So the pointer was like a cone that slipped over the rabbit paw, so he could operate the cell phone, so he could access the world. He could get on, he could get on more than YouTube. He could get on Yahoo or get on Google or whatever he wanted to do. So the rabbit devised and this was considered the rabbit's great invention, but there was no need to develop these because there was only one rabbit in the world who could make use of them. But then other people decided, you could make a cone, and you could, the point of the cone could operate a cell phone, and if you were a paraplegic or you had muscular dystrophy or something, you could poke a cell phone keypad, or and you could access the internet and Yahoo and Google, and you could do do different things. You could search for things, but the rabbit, he had devised cones to go over his little rabbit paws, so he could. And the rabbit said at the time, he said, "I can't even get on the phone. I have no access to anything." But he had learned at this time to take one toe or one a nail on his toes of his rabbit paw and a rabbit foot, and he could poke the phone, and he accessed the Bible. And it was because some Jehovah's Witnesses came. One time Jehovah's Witnesses came, and the man, he dismissed the Jehovah's Witnesses. He came to the man. He was a little drunk that day. He was watching his favorite football team, and his favorite football team was doing horrible. His favorite football team was losing because, the Kentucky Wildcats, they don't win too much. Sometimes they win. If they get a few in the portal, if you could get a few Penn State players and get in the portal, then UK could have a few good quarterbacks like Levis or a few other players. But usually UK was horrible. And they had to get a portal and get a few Penn State players to come down and play for UK, and that would be good because then they could win a few football games, and then the rabbit and the man and everybody would be happy. But the man was very disgruntled because he was watching UK lose another football game to Florida, and they couldn't beat LSU, they couldn't beat Alabama, they never beat Alabama. Hell would freeze over before UK. If UK beat Alabama, it would be a sign of the apocalypse. The apocalypse would happen in the Reformation or the resurrection. But if UK ever beat Alabama, you would better be getting down in your cellar with a copy of the Bible and some water, because the end times are about to transpire. But the rabbit, had learned to access the Bible, and the rabbit had learned a little bit about paradise and about heaven and different things. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, they came to the house one day, and the man was in his underwear drinking a Pils beer. There was almost no Pils beer left. The Pils beer had become a stink, but the man would get online and he would find Pils beer. And his father was a Pils man. He had a great number of cases of Pils down in their cellar. Other people had wine cellars. This man had old, skunky, deficient, crappy beer cellar. He had a crappy beer cellar, so it was like Stagmeyer. The best thing he had down there was some Stroh's or some Schaefer. Most of it was Pils and Stagmeyer. He had a vast collection of Stagmeyer Light. Who would drink Stagmeyer Light? It's like 1% alcohol. You have to drink 17 beers before you can catch a bus. But the man, his father, he had a collection of beers, and the man drank the Pils. The Pils were not so bad. It was a squat bottle with no neck, and for some reason this appealed to the man. A squat brown bottle with a copper label that said Pils and a little tiny nipple he could suck like a baby. And so the man, he enjoyed this the Pils, and he was drunk on Pils, and he was in his briefs with a t-shirt, and he had a beer belly. And the Jehovah's Witnesses came to the door, and the man staggered to the door, and he opened the door and said, the Jehovah's Witnesses said, "Hey, we want to share Jehovah with you." And the man said, "Hey, this is my religion." And he held out a half-drunk bottle of warm Pils, almost slopped on the ground, and everybody was disgusted. Even everybody, the rabbit was disgusted. But the rabbit heard them discussing Jehovah and the Bible, and the rabbit, he accessed the Bible, and this led, because it was very hard to access the Bible. He would bounce around. It would take him days to get on the Bible. On the iPhone, he would get an iPhone from the man when the man was laying drunk and couldn't do nothing, and he would access and sometimes the battery would run out and it was all fruitless, but sometimes you would actually access the iPhone and get on and search. And one time he actually blunderously downloaded the jw.org. I actually downloaded jw.org, so he was able to access the Bible, and he used his little paws, his rabbit foot and a nail on his rabbit foot to operate this the cell phone, and eventually he developed a cone that would fit over top of his paw, and he could poke the very efficiently poke the cell phone and get access to the Bible. But he understood that there was a thing called paradise, and he developed the paradise. But he also watched a lot of regular television, because the man and him always watched a lot of television together. The dog slept under the bed. The dog was always under the bed, but the man and the rabbit, they were watching a lot of television, including Columbo. They loved Columbo, and they were watching the VMAs the one time when this fight had ensued. But before the fight, they had watched a few other things with some skinny people and some models. And the man didn't have too much Bible instruction, but the rabbit had a little self-taught Bible instruction. And they were watching the VMAs, and the man thought that the Kardashian girl with the clad in the leather was more sexy than the little skinny girl with the ugly, tall, blonde-haired boy, Machine Gun Kelly man. A Megan Fox girl was in the skinny clothes. And the rabbit, he looked at the man and said, the skinny people, they look a lot better than the curvy people. And the man, who was pretty curvy with a big beer belly, he said, I disagree. I think she's voluptuous. And she's much more voluptuous, much more pretty. There's much more to love, But the rabbit, he said, well, I don't know. I think the rabbit actually said, all clothes look good on skinny people. In paradise, we will all be skinny. And when he said that, he rubbed his big fat rabbit belly, his big hairy fat rabbit belly, because he was getting ashamed because he was getting so fat on his corn chips and his Fruit Loop diet. And he said, all clothes look good on skinny people. In paradise, we will all be skinny. And he went on to say, every animal, every vertebrae, every mammal will be skinny, and man, he is meant to be skinny. And he looked at the man's big fat slovenly belly, and he said, you shouldn't go to the Dairy Queen so much, and you shouldn't go to the Dairy Queen at all. You should be trying to eat some vegetables, and you should be getting me some vegetables. We should go to the Food City and get 3 vegetable trays per week, not 1 vegetable tray. We should get 3 big vegetable trays. We spend $60 and only eat vegetables. We don't need no meat or nothing. We don't need nothing else. We don't need no corn chips or Fruit Loops or all these other things, the bananas. And, the man said, oh, no. The curviness is much better than the skinniness. And the rabbit said, no. Excuse me. In paradise, we'll all be skinny. Every animal and every vertebrate, every mammal, and man, including with man, we are all meant to be skinny. And a horrible fight ensued, and it developed. The man, at this point, the man went and broke into the cognac, and he drank some cognac, and the rabbit, He couldn't stand the man when he was drinking the cognac. He couldn't stand the man when he was getting intoxicated, the rabbit. And this is why the rabbit at this point had made up his mind he was leaving. He was going to leave that night, and he left that night. And the dog ran to the door and yelped and cried like he was, oh, the rabbit, don't leave, because the dog knew, as stupid as a dog is, he knew it was happening. He knew it was only a matter of time, and it had been building up for some time that there was going to be a cleaving of the relationship, that the triumphant, the three entity relationship, the 3 persona relationship of the man, the rabbit, and the dog, the man, the dog, the rabbit, the rabbit, the man, the dog, everything. They knew they were cleaving. They were cleaving, and the rabbit left, and the rabbit did leave, and the rabbit went on to some success. He had more success. He had moderate success. But the man and the rabbit, they got in a terrible fight. They were shouting, and the neighbor across the street, he heard the voices. He said, the man is over there with only the rabbit and the dog. I saw them walk in. And, that night, the neighbors knew that something was strange, and they believed that, oh my God, the rabbit would talk, but it was too late. No one, they even tried to alert people or discuss it, but they were thought to be idiots. They were thought to be wild. They were thought to be, crazy, insane, dullards, morons, goofbags. Everybody thought they were full of bullshit. And they thought they were crazy. And because they didn't get no traction, they couldn't convince anybody that they heard the rabbit yelling. They said, did you see the rabbit speak? And the girl, by the time the rumors came to the girl who had worked at the Dairy Queen the day the rabbit spoke, she kept her mouth shut because all the other people who said the rabbit could talk were being persecuted. They were being persecuted horribly. But they fought terribly that night, and finally the rabbit, he said, we've been trying for so long, and we've been trying to develop some kind of a monetization of the fact that I have verbalization skills, the fact that I can speak, the fact that I can talk. We have been trying to monetize this. And the man, he blurted out, I came up with something, I've been working on something. And the rabbit wanted to give the man one last chance. The rabbit said, I will give you one last chance. What have you been working on? And the man said, it's a kernel of an idea, but I think it's a beautiful idea. I think we can become rich from this idea. And the rabbit's interest was piqued. So he said, what have you developed? What have you thought? What is the kernel? What is this kernel that you believe is an idea that we could do something with? And the man said, when you walk into the bathroom and you see a tiny roll of toilet paper, this alerts you to the fact that you need to get another roll of toilet paper. And the rabbit, who pooped in a suitcase filled with wood chips, he didn't know what the man was talking about. The rabbit don't have to clean his butt. The little poop kernels come out. They're very hard. They're very dry. There's no need to wipe a butt or an anus. The rabbit anus doesn't need to be wiped. He just had to drop the droppings wherever he goes. But he would always try to drop them in the wood chips in the suitcase, so it would be easy for the man to clean up, and there wouldn't be rabbit droppings all over the carpet. But the man said, when you walk into the bathroom, you see a little tiny bit of toilet paper left on the toilet paper roll. This alerts you to the fact that you need to get a new roll of toilet paper. And the rabbit said, okay, I follow. I don't really have any experience wiping my butt, so I don't know what you're talking about, but I understand. You're saying if you walk in there and you see a little bit of toilet paper on a roll, there's not enough to complete the butt wiping of a big, fat, slovenly man like yourself, a big mud pie. You have to wipe your butt off repeatedly. So yes, you don't have enough toilet paper, so you better go get another roll of toilet paper from the cabinet before you come back into the bathroom and do your business. And the man said, yes. So when you see a little roll, you better get a fresh roll of toilet paper. But if you don't see no roll of toilet paper, no little roll, if the roll is missing, it doesn't click in your mind, so you sit down, you take a crap, you have a mud pie all over your butt cheeks and your anus, and you have no toilet paper. And if you're by yourself, what are you going to do? You're going to take your underwear off? You're going to wipe your butt with a what? You doing a washcloth? What are you going to do? The man said, many a time I've been doing a handstand trying to get to the cabinet to get the toilet paper, and we'll go back to the bathroom without crap rolling down my thighs or falling on the floor because I have a big wet mud pie of crap in my butt, my anus and between my butt cheeks, and because there's no toilet paper, because when I walked into the bathroom, I didn't see a little roll of toilet paper, so it didn't click in my mind to get a fresh roll, so there was no toilet paper. And the man said, this is a thing, this is a truth. This is like what you could read on the Bible, or you could read about it in the Bible, or you could read about it from a scientist, or it was an equation, like Alfred E. Newman. Alfred E. Newman had E pluribus clunum, and but the rabbit was lost, and he looked at the man like he was crazy. But the man said, listen, this is a fact, as if it was, like Albert Einstein has said E equals MC squared, or Alfred E. Newman said E pluribus unum, that you could say it's better to have a little bit of toilet paper on a roll than no roll. Because if you have a little bit of toilet paper, you're alerted to the fact you need a roll of toilet paper, you go get the toilet paper before you take a crap. But if there's no little roll, there's just a missing roll. In the space, you don't understand. The empty space does not alert your brain that you should go get yourself a fresh roll of toilet paper so you could commence your going to the bathroom. And you just sit down and you just take a crap, and then there you are lost. There's no toilet paper. You could scream for anybody. If they can hear you, they could come. If there's nobody who could hear you, you could call somebody a cell phone if you had a number of a close person near your home, so you could get some toilet paper. But if you don't, you have to do like a handstand walk, or with your butt up in the air, down on your hands, on your feet. You're crawling with your butt up in the air, trying to You're trying to cup the crap in your crack of your ass, so you could go find a roll of toilet paper and get back to the bathroom. But if not, toilet crap is going to roll down your thighs. You could plop on the floor like a melted Hershey's Kiss right on the floor. You got to clean up your own crap off the floor. It's disgusting. But the rabbit was perplexed. The rabbit was dumbfounded. The rabbit was. There's a word I can't remember. It's not like you're just convalesced. You're convoluted. You're just so thunderstruck that you don't understand what the man said. You do understand. You heard him, but you don't understand. So the rabbit finally yelled at the top of his lungs, so how can we monetize this? So how does this tie in with the fact I'm a speaking rabbit? How can we tie the fact that you have made an observation that it is better to see a little tiny bit of toilet paper left on the toilet paper cardboard roll than no toilet paper? Because if there's no toilet paper, it doesn't click in your mind to get yourself a fresh roll of toilet paper, and then you go to you crap, and then you're sitting on the toilet, and you have no toilet paper, no way to wipe your butt, and now you have to try to find some toilet paper, wipes your butt enough to go get some toilet paper. Who knows what's going to happen? How is this monetizing the fact that I can talk? How is this helping us? What's going on? I don't understand. This is an observation. But how is this? How are we going to turn this into a business? And the man immediately blurted out, "Well, look what the My Pillow guy did. With just a pillow, he became famous. He became rich, and he could support. He could support an insurrection and try to foster an insurrection and monetarily support an insurrection." And the rabbit was dumbfounded. He was completely beside himself, and he didn't understand. He said, "Listen, so you're telling me you are trying to tie in the fact that, I'm a talking rabbit to this relatively mundane observation that's better to see a little toilet paper in your bathroom as opposed to no toilet paper, because if you don't see no toilet paper, you won't be alerted to the fact you got to go to the cabinet, to the closet, and get a roll of toilet paper, and you won't be sitting there in the toilet wondering who's going to save you or who's going to help you, because you have a big mud pie up in your crack of your ass that you have to clean off before you could do anything, before you could get up." And the rabbit, he gave up that day. That rabbit, as if he lost all hope. He didn't understand what he could do. He didn't understand what could happen. But he understood that he needed a fresh start, and he was going to leave the man. And he was so thankful to the man. He said, "The man, I was made by the man. I was born from the man. I was created by the man. But yet I cannot stay with the man because it's too frustrating. We're never going to do anything." And the bottom line, I think the rabbit was a little bit selfish, because maybe if the rabbit had stuck with the man a little longer, things would have worked out. Maybe they would have come back around. Maybe one of the schemes that the man tried for would have worked. Maybe they would have found a little wealth. Maybe something good would have happened. But, the rabbit had a pretty good life, and for a rabbit, it was a phenomenal life. And, maybe the rabbit should have understood that something, was worthwhile to preserve. But that was the day the rabbit had all he could take, and he said, "I'm going. I'm leaving." And the rabbit left, and the man, he didn't really even understand that the rabbit had left that day, and he didn't even say anything to the rabbit as he was leaving. But the dog went to the door, and he yelped and he yelped and he yelped, and some people thought only because the dog had to stay with the man, because the rabbit couldn't care for a dog. Only the man could have cared for the dog, so the dog stayed with the man. But everybody wondered if maybe the dog wished he could have gone with the rabbit. Maybe the dog would have wished he could go on with the rabbit and the dog could have been a pair. But the triumphant, the three personas, the three individuals, it was over. It was cleaved, and the rabbit cleaved away, and was left with the two. But the rabbit had gone on the singular. There was a cleaving of the three, and it was left with two, and the one departed into a rainy, stormy night. It was a rainy, stormy night, and then very slowly the rabbit hopped away because he had known. And the rabbit went up in the woods and went along the ridges of the mountains for a while because he didn't know what to do. It was very lucky that no hawks or foxes or nothing killed the rabbit, because at this point he was very fat and obese and he couldn't do too much. He couldn't do, he had lost some of his rabbit instinct because he had gained human intelligence, so to speak. He had gained some intelligence from the human world and human book smarts, and he lost some of his rabbit abilities and gained a lot of, human abilities as far as communication, understanding, but left behind some of his rabbit understanding or rabbit intuition. But that night he left and hopped away very slowly. It was a drizzly, a very dark, brooding night, and he left, and the dog yelped. The dog yelped in agony as if his heart was broken. He knew his family was being rent apart. His family was being broken apart, so the dog yelped. He yelped and barked. He barked a mournful, whining yelp, a yelp that was meant to just question everything. The dog was just questioning. The dog didn't have that much intelligence, but he was questioning, how could it fall apart? After all this time, after all this success, after all this happiness, how could it fall apart? How could it be rent? How could it be rent apart? But it was rent. It was rent apart. And the rabbit hopped off mournfully and sadly because he didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew he was fed up with the man. And the man at this particular point was oblivious. He didn't even know the rabbit had left that very night. And what happened, the man was so perplexed because he knew the rabbit was gone, and he cried and he was panic-stricken. He didn't know that the rabbit was leaving him. And never really understood. The man never really understood that the rabbit was getting ready to leave him. The man never really understood that the rabbit had been building a case against the man to leave the man. And the rabbit had been working himself up to leave the man for quite some time, and the dog had no communication, so the dog couldn't tell him. It's a thing where the rabbit's going to leave you. And after the rabbit left him, he couldn't say, the rabbit left you. It's gone. The rabbit's not dead. The rabbit's not missing. The rabbit has left you. And the man was so sad and horror-stricken, and he was torn. He was rent as far as the family was rent. He was rent in pieces himself because he loved the rabbit so much. He loved the rabbit so dearly. And even though the rabbit had ceased loving the man never ceased loving the rabbit. And when the rabbit left, it tore the man apart. Even though the rabbit was pretty much happy and left on a venture and was pretty glad, the rabbit was a little mournful the first day and a little apprehensive. But soon the rabbit basked in its freedom and its newfound freedom, and it was super happy, controlling its own life and making its own decisions and spending its own money. Once it started to earn a lot of good money because it was freed from the man's incompetence. But the man, the man was crushed. The man was battered. The man was just viciously, he was just crumpled and crushed, like he was as if somebody stuck him in a car, a car crunching machine where they crunch the cars up into a cube of metal. But that was the thing. The rabbit, he went on, and the rabbit was kind of happy. After a very short time, the rabbit was happy and very, 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 glad to have control over its own life and its own decisions and its own monetary. But the man, he was crushed. It took a long, long time for the man to become whole again, or to try to attempt to become whole. It was a very sad thing. That night, the rabbit left. He was a little sad, but the next day he was getting happier, and 3 days later he was happy. The man was tortured. For weeks and months, the man dreamt about the rabbit. The man would wake up crying in a dream that the rabbit had come home to him. The man would go to sleep, and he was sad because the rabbit was gone. But then in his dream, the rabbit would come to him, and the rabbit would say, "I'm sorry I left you. I shouldn't have left you. I love you." And the man would wake up crying because he knew that the rabbit wasn't coming back and everything. At the minute sometimes the man would fall asleep. And he would dream that the rabbit had come hopping up like the lane, or hopping across a meadow, or hopping, in through a patch of sun. And the man would say, "Oh, rabbit, I'm so happy I'm seeing you. I didn't know what happened to you. I was so worried. My life was shattered. Now I'm so full of joy. I'm so happy." And they would embrace. And the rabbit would look at the man in the dream, and the rabbit would say, "I should have never left you. I didn't realize how much I loved you. I didn't realize how much you meant to me. I didn't realize how deeply I felt for you, my friend the man." And the man would say, "My friend the rabbit, I'm so glad you've come home. I was so sad. I was so unhappy. I was so shattered, but now I'm whole again. Now I feel wonderful." And then the man would wake up, and he would realize it took a few seconds. And that was the horrible thing, because when the man woke up, he would be looking around for the rabbit. I'm awake. I'm happy. I'm whole again. And then he would realize, no, the rabbit is not there. The rabbit has left me, and I will never have the rabbit again. I am left with a giant hole in my soul, because the rabbit is gone, and the rabbit will never be back. And then the man would weep, and it was torturous for the man. One of these dreams occurred very frequently for the first few months, almost for the first half a year after the rabbit had left. And so the man would wake up, thinking for a brief second, a second or two, he would say, "Where's the rabbit? I'm so happy. I have the..." And then it would strike him all over again. And it was as if he was being punished by fate. He was being put through the loss and the separation over and over again, all fresh and new. Why would you have to live through the fresh and new separation? You should live through the separation one time, when the rabbit would say, "I'm leaving you. I'm done. I can't stay." And the rabbit would leave, and you would say, "Oh my God, I have to deal with this." But then, multiple times in the teens, almost into the double digits, the man should have to relive the pain and the anguish in the double-digit episodes, or in his own mind, fabricated by his own brain. He should have to relive, the anguish and the pain over and over. He should have to relive the anguish and the pain